Good afternoon, friends. Ms Souza here. Today, I'd like to show you how to make a flip folder. Now, flip folders can be used for many different fun activities. They could be used to practice your spelling words. They could be used to practice telling time or math facts. Whatever you want to use it for. You basically just need to make one folder that you can use a paper insert in, and you can constantly change the folder part. The inside. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make the outside. So I used a manila folder. If you don't have any manila folders at home, all you need is 2 pieces of paper. So what you would do is you'd take your 2 pieces of paper, put one on top of the other, and then you'd take some tape and you'd tape along the seam. The other thing you're going to need is you're going to need a scissors because we're going to cut this paper. So what you're going to do is once your paper is taped on, okay, you're going to take your scissors and then you're going to cut that paper into 3 equal parts. Now, for those of you who are using paper, the tape is going to be the top part of your seam. Don't cut all the way to the top. Now, I am going to use the flip folder because the folder itself is a little more solid. So let me show you what to write on each section of the folder, and then I'm going to show you how to write, how to use it. It goes like this. The first section of the folder says write it and read it. As you see, I have 2 equal slices here, one here and one here. Because whatever you do, you're going to do 3 times. So the first section, you're going to write it and read it. So if you have spelling words, you're going to write your spelling words and you're going to read them. Then you go to the second section, and we just switch those words around. This one says read it and write it. And then the last section says read it, write it, and check it. So after you have your folder all constructed, you get yourself a piece of paper. You're going to want to put this paper in the middle of my flip folder. And then I'm going to flip them up so that my lines are all lined up like this. So then, because I'm working on my spelling, I write 3 lines of numbers 1 to 10. Let me show you what that looks like without the folder. The reason I put it in the folder is you want to make sure and have it right under the correct flap. So all I did was I wrote my numbers from 1 to 10 3 different times. So each number section fits under the first flap, the second flap, and the third flap. So I'm going to put the words, the paper in my folder, and I close my folder. I've already done some for you, so just play along. So this week we're doing long E. So what I did is it says write it and read it. So I wrote the word eat. E-A-T. I read it off of my other piece of paper and I wrote it in here. I continued down my list each time, flipping this open and closing. I read it. My next word was treat. I wrote T-R-E-A-T. So I continued down my list. So once you do all 10 of them, reading it and writing it, writing it and reading it, reading it and writing it, you're going to move on to the next section. It's called read it and write it. This is how this section works. You flip up your first section. You say to yourself, number 1 is eat. I read it. Now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to write E-A-T. I flip this back up and I say, number 2 is treat. Notice I'm reading it, and then over here, I'm writing it. T-R-E-A-T. Go over. I'm going to skip to number 4 because I already did 3. Number 4 is dream. I read it, so then I'm going to go over to my next section, and under number 4, I'm going to write it. No peeking. D-R-E-A-M, dream. So again, you're going to do that with all 10 words. You're going to read it, then write it. Read it, then write it. Now we get to the last section. And you say, Ms. Souza, I've already done that. But this time, you're going to read it, write it, check it. And this is how read it, write it, check it works. I go back to here. I read it. Number 1 is eat. So I go to my last section, and I'm going to write the word eat. E-A-T. Well, that's the read it and write it part. This is the check it part. You will lift your first flap, and you will look at your last flap, and you will check to see that this eat is spelled correctly. Read it, write it, check it. If number 1 is done, I go to number 2. I read it. It's treat. I go to my last section in my folder and I write treat. Again, no peeking. T-R-E-A-T. Read it, write it, and now I'm going to check it. I go back to my first section and I make sure that I spelled that word correctly. This is how you use a flip folder. Now that's pretty easy. Once you have your folder done, you can just make yourself as many of these inserts as you want. And again, you can use them for anything. You can use them for math facts. 10 plus 0 equals 10. Read it, write it. All the way over, flip it, and check the next section. It's just a fun way to practice spelling or math or anything you want to use it for. So there you go. That's called a flip folder. It doesn't take an envelope or a cardstock. You could just use regular old paper because it works the same exact way. I hope you have fun with the flip folders and stay tuned until I give you some more spelling words to put in them.